The first call came from a cleaning crew. They had been hired to clean an office building after a company relocated. It was a routine job. Empty desks, empty offices, nothing unusual, until one of the workers noticed something strange. The building directory listed 12 floors. The elevator buttons listed 12 floors. The emergency evacuation maps listed 12 floors. But when he counted the floors from the outside, there were 13 rows of windows. He mentioned it as a joke. Nobody laughed. The building manager insisted there were only 12 floors. The blueprints showed 12 floors. The inspection reports showed 12 floors. Everything said 12, but the worker couldn't let it go. So during lunch, he started counting again. And again, every time he reached 13. Eventually, curiosity got the better of him. He took the elevator to the top floor and climbed into the maintenance stairwell. There, he noticed something odd. Between floors 8 and 9, the staircase spacing felt wrong. There should have been another landing. Instead, there was a blank concrete wall, fresh compared to the surrounding structure. The worker reported it. Management dismissed it. But a few days later, another cleaner noticed the same thing. Then a contractor, then a fire inspector. Enough people questioned it that city officials finally reviewed the building's construction history. What they discovered made no sense. The original plan submitted 40 years earlier showed 13 floors. Yet every later document showed 12. Somewhere along the way, an entire floor had disappeared from the records. Police became involved only after a second discovery. Several missing person cases from the 1980s shared one detail. All the victims had worked in that building. Different companies, different years, same address. Investigators obtained a warrant to examine the structure. Engineers brought specialized equipment, ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, structural scanners. The results were undeniable. There was empty space between floors 8 and 9. A full level, completely sealed. Workers spent 2 days cutting through reinforced concrete. When they finally opened the passage, cold air poured out. The smell followed. The space beyond was dark, untouched. Dust coated everything. Old office furniture remained exactly where it had been left decades earlier. Computers, telephones, desks, coffee mugs. It looked as though people had simply stood up and walked away. Then investigators found the first body, still seated at a desk. The remains were decades old. More were discovered throughout the floor. Some in offices, some in hallways, one near an emergency exit that had been welded shut. Forensic teams spent weeks documenting the scene. Evidence suggested something terrible had happened there during a renovation project in the early 1980s. Records from that period were incomplete. Several employees who might have known details had died years earlier. The contractor responsible no longer existed. No living suspect was ever identified. The official explanation pointed to a cover-up after a deadly accident. But many investigators weren't convinced. Too many details didn't fit. Too many doors had been sealed from the outside. Too many people had disappeared without explanation. The floor was eventually demolished. The building itself was torn down 5 years later. Today, a parking garage occupies the site. Most people have no idea what once stood there. But former investigators still talk about one detail. When they first entered the missing floor, they found every clock stopped at exactly the same time. 2:17 a.m. every wristwatch, every desk clock, every wall clock, all frozen, as if something happened at that precise moment. Something so sudden that nobody ever had the chance to leave.